Tomatoes. So you've probably encountered this before, the hybrids. They're the ones you'll find year-round in a grocery store. They're super red, firm, pretty thick-skinned. You know the kind? They're not bad. They're just bred to resist diseases, travel well, resist bugs, and store for a longer time. And I don't know about you, but that's kind of not what I look for when I'm thinking about what I want to eat. Another issue is that grocery produce is picked like way too early, you know, so that it stores and it's not so like squishy and soft. But that basically means they have like zero flavor, and especially tomatoes, because they can't ripen off the vine. So if you can remember that last slice of tomato on your burger or your sandwich, and you know, it did like absolutely nothing but make it soggy, yeah, it's time to up your game. So today we are talking about heirloom tomatoes on this episode of What the F Is This?
Hey guys, Carl here. So before we get into this video, if you're new here, welcome to the Adventures of Carly and channel, where we're pursuing our passions and trying to get better every day. We're going to be sharing our wins, our successes, our failures, our losses, and just sharing the struggle. So if you're down to come on this adventure, then hit the subscribe, hit the bell, and welcome to our community.
So what the heck are heirloom tomatoes? These are the fantastic, vibrant, highly varied in shape, size, and color. Sometimes they're perfect globes, or they're like chunky beef steaks, or even rainbow little cherry tomatoes. They're bred without that commercially desirable genetic mutation that allows the fruit to uniformly ripen, giving that like perfect all-around red color. But that trait is also linked to the ability to create sugars, which is why heirloom tomatoes typically taste better than hybrids. Heirloom tomatoes are dubbed so because of their seeds, which have been passed down from generation to generation. And they are always open pollinated, like naturally, as in by wind, birds, insects, or human hands. They're like the purebreds of the tomato world. So if you plant an heirloom seed, you should get a plant very similar to its parent, unlike hybrids, which often have sterile seeds. So the term heirloom did not come into play until 1981, when a Kent Wheely of Seed Savers Exchange borrowed the term from another guy named John Withy, who is like from the bean world, but he also borrowed it from this other guy, a professor, William Hepler, back in the 1940s. Fun bit of history there.
Within this umbrella of heirlooms, we have 4 categories. 1, the commercial heirloom. 2, the family heirloom. 3, created heirlooms. 4, mystery heirlooms.
There are more than 3,000 varieties of heirloom tomatoes in active cultivation worldwide, but there are actually 15,000 known varieties. As you can imagine, we can't possibly cover that in this video, so we'll just kind of go over the general differences.
First off, all of these are going to sound like gangs. They're all gangs. So think of heirloom tomatoes as all gangs. Black heirloom tomatoes are the first varieties that we are going over. So they're referred to as black because they're this deep, maroon colored variety, sometimes purple brown, and they have this earthy, smoky, they're less acidic than the red ones. So some of the gang names of these black heirloom tomatoes are Purple Russian, Cherokee Purple, Black Crim.
Next up, we have the red or pink variety, and these are often mistaken as hybrid tomatoes at the market, but they are in fact heirloom tomatoes still. They have a lot more of a robust or acidic flavor, and sometimes of the red varieties, you'll hear this term old-fashioned, which is basically that perfect middle ground between sweet and sour. You have varieties like Costoluto, Carmelo, Brandywine, or Arkansas Traveler.
So next we have the orange heirloom tomatoes. They're usually mild, sweet, they're low in acid, and they're the type of tomato that remind you that tomatoes are actually a fruit. Some of the varieties that you'll run into for orange are going to be Chef's Choice Orange, Persimmon, because persimmons are orange, and Kellogg breakfast, or Kellogg's breakfast. I have no idea what that has to do with cereal, but orange.
Next we have the yellow or white heirloom tomatoes. The white tomatoes are obviously not really white, but they're very pale. They're considerably less acidic than any of the other varieties, but can also sometimes be the most bland. But basically, you're just getting them for their low acidity. You have the gold medal, yellow pear, Azoichka, which is Russian, and I'm sure I got that wrong, and the lemony or lemony variety.
Next on the rainbow, we have green heirloom tomatoes. They tend to be bright in acidity and their sweetness levels can actually range, so be careful. So some of the varieties that you'll come across are Aunt Ruby's Green, the Green Zebra, Dwarf Emerald Giant, Cherokee Green, all drug names.
Oh no, he didn't.
And last but not least, we have the striped heirloom tomatoes, which kind of is a little confusing, I think. But they're basically some of the bicolored ones and sometimes referred to as marbled. They're really, really beautiful and they tend to have a rich, juicy, super sweet flavor. Stuff like chocolate stripes, speckled Roman. Sounds like a party, right?
So heirloom tomatoes are so tasty, we recommend that you just eat it raw or in salads or with a little drizzle of olive oil, just because they're so flavorful. But with this many varieties, how do you choose? I'll tell you. So there's a few different ways we can do this. You can choose them by color, depending on what kind of salad you're making or whatever dish you're making. A lot of the different colors can make your dish really just pop out visually. Second, you can do it by flavor profile. So the yellow ones tend to be more mild than tart. The red and the greens tend to be more of like bright. The darker shades of the tomatoes tend to be more savory than sweet. It can really help you shape the flavor profile of your dish just by the color itself. So the last way you can choose heirloom tomatoes is by texture, which will be dictated by shape. First, you have the beefsteak, the big guys, the big ones. They have smaller seed cavities and have a more fleshy feel to it. So hence beefsteak. It's a beefier bite. You have plum tomatoes or Roma tomatoes or paste tomatoes. They have a more chewy flesh and makes it great for like cooking down for sauces. For example, a really popular tomato in this category would be the San Marzanos. Next, we have baby tomatoes or grape tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, or cocktail ones. They all vary widely as well. Cherry tomatoes tend to have a thin skin and more water content and tend to be very sweet. Grape tomatoes have a thicker skin, less water, and tend to hold or store better than the other guy. Next, we have cocktail tomatoes, which are larger than the grape and the cherry tomatoes. They're grown hydroponically, so they're the best tomato to buy out of season. In terms of storing these delicate beauties, they have a short shelf life, so consume them as soon as possible. Just don't put it in the refrigerator because it does decrease their flavor.
So yes, the heirloom tomatoes are a little bit extra in every sense, but if you're tired of those watery, flavorless tomatoes, you have to give heirloom tomatoes a try. Note that not all heirloom tomatoes taste better. Nowadays, more and more of them are being commercially grown, so your best bet is to go to your local farmer's market for the tastiest bites.
Yes, definitely visit your local farmer's market. And if your interest in tomatoes or heirloom tomatoes has been piqued, then give this video a thumbs like. Let us know in the comments what variety you think you'd want to choose or what dish you're gonna make with your local farmer's market heirloom tomatoes. But yeah, you don't want to you don't want to miss the next What the F series. It's an ingredient that arguably changed the world. So it's a big one. So stay tuned and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.